If you think rising customer acquisition costs are your biggest problem as a ClickBank seller, you're wrong. And that misdiagnosis is costing you millions. In this ClickBank Masterclass, I'm going to reveal the true constraint killing your margins, show you exactly what the top 1% of ClickBank sellers are doing differently, and give you the exact framework so you can do it yourself and break through your scale ceiling. So let's start by breaking down what's really holding back ClickBank sellers from profitably scaling. They think it's rising customer acquisition costs. They think it's a traffic problem. They think it's an agency problem. They think it's an offer problem. But the reality is they can't answer one fundamental question about their business. And their inability to answer that question is the thing holding them back. So to illustrate this, I want to start with an analogy. Your business is a boat in the ocean, and it's slowly sinking. Our margins dropping inside of our business, that's the boat slowly sinking in the ocean. Now, there's something that we can't see going on. Below the deck, holes are starting to form in the boat, and that's causing the boat to slowly sink. But you can't see that this is happening because you lack the visibility. The deck is there, you can't see below it. This is exactly what's going on in your business. Margins are dropping, costs are rising, the boat is slowly sinking. But because you can't answer this fundamental question, this visibility problem is preventing you from knowing what to do next, what to focus on. So I want to do a little bit of an exercise here. Let's talk about this fundamental question that is truly holding ClickBank sellers back from being able to profitably scale. I want to start by asking you this. Do you know how much you can actually afford to spend to acquire a customer? Now, the answer is either yes or no. So if your answer is kind of, that means the answer is no. But if the answer is yes, let's challenge that. And I want you to note when your answer flips from yes to a no. Okay? So do you actually know how much you can afford to spend to acquire a customer? Okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you know how much your customers are worth at day 0, 30, 60, 90, and 180? Do you know how much your customers are worth at day 0, 30, 60, 90, and 180 for every product, funnel, traffic source, and affiliate? Are you able to express how much those customers are worth at every day of the journey for every product, funnel, traffic source, and affiliate in terms of gross profit? It's not just gross revenue, but how much gross profit you actually keep on those sales. My guess is that somewhere along the way there, you could no longer confidently say yes, because the reality is only about 1% of businesses can. And that 1%, those are the top ClickBank sellers. They are the ones who can answer the fundamental question better than you. How much can I afford to spend to acquire a customer? Truly. When you know the answer to that question, you know the answer to the most fundamental question inside your business. Because in order to know how much you can afford to spend to acquire a customer, you must know how much your customers are worth in terms of gross profit at every day of the journey for every product, funnel, traffic source, and affiliate. And 99% don't. So that fundamental question right there, that is the visibility gap that is preventing ClickBank sellers from making good decisions that lead to profitable scale. That is the hole below the deck in your boat that is causing it to sink. That is the leak in the boat that is causing profits to drop, that is causing the boat to drop lower and lower and lower, but you don't know why. And even if you are in that 1%, which if you are, great job. The rest of this video is going to unpack exactly how to leverage that fundamental question and all of the other aspects around it to build a profitable, scalable business that allows you, most importantly, to make good decisions and to do so with confidence. Now we're going to cover the 5 major pain points I see ClickBank sellers experiencing in their business. And we're going to diagnose together the true root cause of these pain points, and then walk through the exact system our ClickBank partners are using to solve these constraints and break through their scale ceiling. The most common complaint I hear from ClickBank sellers is rising customer acquisition costs. Customer acquisition costs are rising, affiliates are demanding higher and higher commissions, and it feels like there's nothing they can do about it. Well, here's one of the realities. It's an inevitability that over time, customer acquisition cost will rise. If we look year over year, customer acquisition costs tend to go up about 10% 1 year at a time. So this is a phenomenon that we have to become resilient to. Now, the reason why we experience this as such a pain is because CAC is something that we can see, right? It's visible to us. So it's easy to point at it and go, look, our customer acquisition cost used to be $150. Now it's $170. That's a problem. What's going on? But the root issue here is something that you can't see. And this is why you can't point to it and say that's what's really going on. The root issue is that you have back-end weakness. You have lifetime value weakness in disguise. And you look at CAC because you can see it and you say that's the problem. But the root cause is something below the surface. It's something that you can't see. So we come back to our boat analogy. Your business is a boat in the water. Below the deck, leaks are starting to form. It's causing the boat to sink, and your profit margins are dropping. One of those leaks in the boat is rising customer acquisition cost. But the real problem is that your business is not resilient to rises in customer acquisition cost. So what does resilience look like? Resilience looks like a business that can acquire customers and monetize them effectively while delivering a fantastic customer experience. Resilience looks like a customer lifetime value that goes up over time. Resilience looks like a business that isn't losing 20% of its profits to refunds. Resilience looks like a business where their LTV doesn't have a dip that they struggle to rebound from. Resilience looks like a strong customer lifetime value, one that goes up and to the right over time. But if you can't see your customer lifetime value, it's hard to even have this conversation. And that's why just point the finger at the thing we can see, which is customer acquisition cost. So what does it take to really build this resilience? Well, it's what I call the golden journey. It's a customer journey that maximizes value to the customer while maximizing value to the business. And I want to say that both ways because it's very important. It maximizes value to the customer while maximizing value to the business. But you can say it the other way too. It maximizes value to the business while maximizing value to the customer. Now, why do I even say that? It's because this is something I don't think gets talked about enough. If you truly want to maximize your customer lifetime value, it's not beating your customers over the head with more offers, more selling, more this, more that, all the things we hear about so much in our direct response masterminds, right? The $1.7 billion in data that I've analyzed has shown me the customers that are suffering are the ones who are not resilient to rising customer acquisition costs because they have a poor LTV. They have an LTV curve that dips down due to refunds and struggles to recover. The ones who are scaling are the ones that have an up and to the right, healthy LTV curve. And the patterns between the businesses suffering and the businesses that are scaling is the quality of their customer journey. It's a strategic and repeatable customer journey that maximizes value to the customer while maximizing value to the business. And that pillar, strategic and repeatable, of the golden journey is something that most businesses completely miss. Even if you hear what I'm saying and go, well, we do have a customer journey. We take them through a follow-up sequence, 7 to 14 days long. Then they get onto our broadcast list. Then we send them offers. That is not a customer journey. And here's why. When your customers come in the door, the experience they have is going to be largely random. It's going to be a function of what day they happen to buy, what month they happen to buy. Because by the time they're at day 7 or day 14, they're just on the broadcast list, getting the offer of the day, the offer of the week, the offer of the month. Because that customer journey is largely random, you're going to get random results. And if you want to build resilience to rising customer acquisition cost, you have to craft a strategic and repeatable journey that maximizes value to the customer and value to the business. That is what it takes to build CAC resilience. Now, in order to even start that conversation, though, to come back to our boat analogy, you have to be able to see below the deck to know what your customer lifetime value actually looks like. And the fact that you can't, It's another hole in the side. It's another thing eating into your profit margins because you don't know about it. And because you don't know about it, you're not attacking it. And if you were to attack it, it would start to build that resilience to a rising customer acquisition cost. Because here's the reality. Customer acquisition costs will continue to rise. And at a certain point, it will overwhelm your business and your ship will be below water. The only way to combat that is to be resilient to that rise, so that as CAC goes from 150 to 160 to 170, your competitors can no longer keep up. They fall out of the market. Their ship sinks. You're still rising above water. You can weather that storm. You are resilient to the rising customer acquisition cost. So when I hear rising customer acquisition cost as a pain point, what I hear is that you have an invisible problem hiding below the surface that you can't see. And at the end of the day, that problem all centers around customer lifetime value and crafting a golden journey that builds CAC resilience by building a strong lifetime value over time. If you talk to any ClickBank seller in 2025, you'll hear them complaining about shrinking profit margins. What used to be 12, 15% margins are now in the single digits, 7, 6, 5%. And in some cases, they're now having losing months for the first time ever. So what's going on here? Well, to them, what they see is, all right, there's things going on that we got to respond to. We need to figure out a way to cut our costs so we can be more profitable, right? They try and get breaks on their cost of goods if they're selling physical products. Maybe having to make some tough decisions about laying off team members, switching to an agency with a different cost model, moving to a different ad platform. They're looking for all these ways to drive costs down. But the issue here is they may have great revenue numbers. In many cases, these businesses are doing high revenue, but the margins are shrinking not because the costs are too high, but because they're bleeding the money that they already made. It's these leaks below the surface that aren't being addressed, in most cases because they can't really see them to begin with. But what are these leaks? Well, it's losing $30, $40, $50 per customer to refunds. But you just see my refund rate is 15%. My friends tell me that's pretty normal, kind of comes with the territory here. Not true. For the industry leaders, they don't tolerate that, and they look at things completely differently. They know exactly how much they're losing to refunds over the course of the customer journey. And if you truly did, and you could watch the bleed happen 24 hours after the sale, 7 days after the sale, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you would feel the pain of those refunds. And that is one of the single biggest leaks in the boat for these direct response companies, for these ClickBank sellers. Next, they have a weak back end. They don't do a good job of selling to the customers after they acquire them. They hear all the direct response tactics. I gotta sell. Every email, gotta be selling. The problem with that is everyone is doing that. Everyone has heard all of the same things. And many of these businesses, if you zoom out, they look identical to one another. They have undifferentiated front-end offers. They have a 7-day follow-up sequence just to say that they've got one in place. Then they get their customers onto a broadcast list. Then they start blasting them with offers every single day. This model is dying. Everybody's doing it, and it's just not that effective. And if you don't believe me when I say that, ask your profit margins. If they're declining, if the ship is sinking, I'm telling you, after analyzing billions of dollars worth of data in this industry for ClickBank sellers, this is what's going on. So we have leak in the bucket, leak in the boat due to refunds. We do a poor job of monetizing the customers after we acquire them. And here's some math that I want to share with you to shift your perspective. When you acquire a customer, think about how much profit you're making on that sale. Whether it's through paid ads, whether affiliates are sending you customers and you're paying out commissions, how much are you actually making on that sale? It could be anywhere from you're losing a little bit of money, depending on how aggressive you're being, all the way up to maybe you're making 10, 15% in margin. Let's just call it 10%. So every customer that comes in the door, you have a 10% margin on that sale. But what happens next? Refunds. Refunds come in. And overwhelmingly, you're losing far more than that 10% to refunds, unless you're one of the best in the industry. So now that $10 that you made on the initial sale, that 10% in our example here, is gone. And in fact, you went from making $10 to losing $10, maybe even losing $20 or $30. So we've already lost the money that we made initially. And that's a problem in and of itself. But then you layer on top of that, we try and sell more to make up the difference. And you don't really do a great job of it. You're not strategic about it. You're not intentional about it. You don't have a repeatable system that produces value. You're leaving things up to chance. But here's what you're missing. When a customer that you already paid to acquire buys from you again, that sale is extremely high margin. The only cost that you have on that existing customer buying from you again are just the costs associated with the products that you're selling. So this could be an 85% margin sale. The math here is simple. If all you do is make these 10% margin sales that actually turn into losers, and you make very few of these high margin back-end sales, that's a recipe for low or no profits. That's a recipe for a ship that just sinks and sinks and sinks. If, on the other hand, you put a comparable amount of effort to selling to the customers that you already paid to acquire, compared to what you're putting in to your VSLs, your conversion rate optimization, your AOVs, all of those things, you redirect some of that focus onto the back end. Take some of that marketing skill and expertise and deploy it there. What made you a great seller in the first place? Deploy it onto the back end. And when you do, you're going to increase the frequency of these high margin sales, build the business's margin up. If you double the back end sales, meaning instead of, let's say, 3% of your new customers buying from you after the initial purchase, you take that to 6%, you're literally doubling the number of these 85% margin sales. That is going to pull up the profit margin of the business and start building some resilience. So when I hear shrinking profit margins, what I really hear is an unoptimized system. What I really hear is a boat that's leaking, but you don't know why. What I really hear is we haven't taken the time to put in the same effort into our customer journey that we put into our front-end VSL or long-form sales page or whatever we're doing to acquire customers on the front end. And if you don't solve those leaks in the boat, your boat will sink. Build resilience, build a customer journey that protects against refund loss, that optimizes for back-end sales, and you will see the margins of your business start to rise back up. Volatility. Something I hear all the time from ClickBank sellers that they're dealing with. Whether it's customer acquisition costs swinging wildly on their ad platforms, or one of their top affiliates is sending them 100 customers a day, then all of a sudden it stops. From one week to the next, it feels like things can be unpredictable and like a roller coaster. And this volatility can create real problems because it makes your business very unpredictable. So this volatility, we think it comes with the territory. It's just the ad platforms being the ad platforms, right? It's just Meta being Meta. It's Google being Google. It's just part of the affiliate game, right? We say all these things to rationalize the volatility. And to some extent, that's absolutely true. But it leaves us wondering, why is it really happening in the first place in a way that affects us? The issue here is this volatility is to some extent inevitable. What it comes down to is, are we able to weather the storm? Are we able to handle the volatility and not have it crush us? So very much in the same way, when we talk about rising customer acquisition costs, we talk about shrinking profit margins. We're trying to figure out what is the root issue here that makes us so susceptible to volatility. It all comes back to resilience. There are businesses where the volatile times are actually some of their best. There are ClickBank sellers when everyone else is freaking out because costs are rising. They're happy about it because their competitors are dying off. And what's going on inside of their business that's not going on inside of yours? They have the resilience. And what does that resilience look like? It looks like a golden customer journey that maximizes value to the customer while maximizing value to the business. It looks like high customer lifetime value so that when our customer acquisition cost inevitably goes up as part of this volatility cycle, they're still okay. And where we should strive to be is to build a business that can weather the bad times so we can thrive in the good. That requires resilience. When CAC goes up, it shouldn't be a signal that we need to stop and pull back. We need to build a business that can withstand, a business that can keep running. Yes, maybe during that period, our margins will temporarily drop, but we're not flipping the equation into the negative where it's going to kill us. We're now going from operating at 12% margins to maybe we have a month or two where that does come back down to 6-7%. But that's something that we can weather, push through, and then come out the other side. Being able to withstand the volatility, to me, is a requirement of being successful as a ClickBank seller, because the volatility is inevitable. What is within your control is, can you build a business that's resilient to it? If you can, and you do that by getting the visibility into seeing what's really going on, using that visibility to construct a customer journey that maximizes value, then you will build the resilience so that you can weather the bad times, thrive in the good, and get yourself into that top 1%. Now, this is a big one. This is something I hear ClickBank sellers talk about all the time that almost nobody has a solution to: the affiliate data visibility gap. And here's what I mean. For many ClickBank sellers, the way that they often get started in building out the back end of their business, where they send their new customers after they acquire them, is by promoting offers as an affiliate. So they bring a new customer in, get them onto their email list, then they send them an email promoting another ClickBank seller's offer, acting as an affiliate. The pain here is that when those sales happen, when one of your customers buys from somebody else, all you know is that a sale occurred and you made some commission. And you're very aware of this. You know that you can't tie that sale back to the customer of yours that bought. This incomplete visibility leaves you only being able to see how much you're making in commissions, but not actually knowing who's buying and when. This creates a false sense of confidence, because when everything's looking good, the numbers are looking great, commissions are flowing in, business is nice and profitable, you're not really all that worried about it. But behind the scenes here, what's going on is your customers are going somewhere else, they're buying things, and you really have no idea what's actually happening. All you're getting are anonymous commissions flowing into your business. So when the ship starts to sink a little bit, when the margins start to drop, when everything's not going great, when you're in some stormy weather, and you want to actually try and figure out what's going on, you now hit the root issue. You have no visibility into which of your customers are buying from these affiliate offers and when. And for many ClickBank sellers, a large portion, if not a majority, of their back-end sales are coming through these affiliate offers. So it's a major blind spot. And it's a blind spot that prevents you from actually seeing the true impact of these affiliate sales on your customer lifetime value. And you're probably aware, if this is you, that's preventing you from being able to figure out, how much can I actually afford to spend in commissions on the front end? Or how much can I actually afford to spend to acquire a customer? Because these affiliate sales are adding to my customer lifetime value. You know they are. You just have no visibility into it at all. So on our boat, the boat of our business in the ocean, another one of these leaks below the surface is a lack of visibility into our affiliate sales. And what do we need to do to solve this? Because when times aren't great, when the waters are a little bit rocky, we have to be able to see what's really going on here, especially if it's a significant portion of our back end, which in many cases it is. The solution is to build a system that will attribute the sales made through these affiliate offers back to the specific customer of yours that bought. It's to identify who actually bought and when. They're your customers after all, so you should be able to figure this out. The problem is, this is a really difficult problem to solve. The ones who have solved it, if they have, they tend to be the biggest of the biggest companies in the industry. The ones who are able to invest resources to hire developers, to build out some custom technology to solve this problem for themselves. But it's very rare, and that's out of reach for the overwhelming majority of ClickBank sellers. So if we know the real solution to this root issue of a lack of visibility is to attribute the sales back to the customers of ours that bought, how do we actually do it? Well, at LTV Numbers, we've built a first-of-its-kind integration with ClickBank that allows us, for when you promote a ClickBank offer on your back end, we can attribute that sale back to the specific customer of yours that bought. So you know that John Smith, who you acquired 7 days ago, when you promoted that offer in your customer follow-up sequence and he purchased from business A, you know John Smith bought from business A 7 days after the initial sale. You know exactly how much money he spent and how much you earned in commissions. When you have that visibility now, all of a sudden, it's as if your affiliate backend is just as good as selling your own products internally because you have the same visibility. So now we can build up the customer lifetime value. We can see that you made that initial sale, you promoted some affiliate offers in your follow-up sequences and on your back end, and you can watch the customer lifetime value grow. You can watch those sales be attributed to specific customers at the exact day in the journey where those sales occurred. So now all of a sudden, what used to be completely invisible, completely impossible to see, completely unusable from a decision-making standpoint in terms of how much you can afford to spend to acquire a customer, now visibility. The fog is lifted. You can now see how much your customers are worth at every day of the journey, blending together the affiliate sales on your back end and the sale of your own products. When you put those two together, you now finally have complete visibility. And a very important point here is that if on your back end, you can see the sales of your own products, but you can't see the sales of these affiliate products, that partial visibility can be just as damaging as no visibility at all. And the reason why is it gives you a false sense of reality. You think you know what your customer lifetime value is, and you'll do some mental gymnastics to go, well, we did this much in commissions over the course of the last month, so we can probably say it's something like $10 added to the customer lifetime value, but it's all a guess. And as soon as you start making decisions based on those guesses, this is where you can get into a really bad situation really fast. Because when things go south, you won't really be able to identify what happened because you were acting on incomplete visibility. So if this is you, if you have a backend that includes affiliate sales where you're promoting someone else's offer as a ClickBank seller, you need to complete the visibility picture because it is a requirement to gain that visibility to be able to make good decisions, to be able to figure out how much you can actually afford to spend to acquire a customer, how much you can afford to pay in commissions to acquire your customers. And LTV Numbers has a first-of-its-kind integration with ClickBank that allows you to do exactly that. So if you would like to solve the affiliate data visibility gap for your business, click the link in the description, book a scale session with our team, and we'll walk you through exactly how this ClickBank affiliate visibility integration works so you can get that full picture of visibility for your business, make better decisions, and scale more profitably. Flailing. This is something I see ClickBank sellers doing all the time. I want to tell you exactly what it means. Flailing is what happens when you're uncertain. Flailing is what happens when there are problems going on in the business, but you don't really know what to do about it. And I call it flailing because what it looks like is just trying a bunch of stuff. You're busy. Copywriters working on this, customer success teams working on that. It's not for lack of effort or trying. You know there are problems and you are trying to fix them. But flailing is what it looks like when you don't know what's going on. Flailing is one of the core symptoms of a lack of visibility. So how do we overcome flailing? What's really going on here? Flailing happens because you can't diagnose the problem. And you can't diagnose the problem because you don't have enough visibility to diagnose the problem. So the solution is we must get the visibility required to actually assess what's going on in our business. Because if we don't, here's what happens. It's just Meta being Meta. It's just Google being Google. It's the affiliate hamster wheel. It's just part of the game. I think we need to look at it another agency, maybe. Or hey, I know, let's start launching a new offer every month. That'll do it. That'll fix the problems. You're just trying a lot of things. And it's coming from a good place, right? You're trying to find something that moves the needle, right? That moves the business forward. But because you lack the visibility, you're unable to identify what is the true constraint of the business. And every business has one constraint. This is a core pillar of the data-driven mindset. Every business has one constraint, but to be able to identify it requires visibility at a level of detail that only about 1% of businesses actually have. It's being able to truly answer the question, how much can I afford to spend to acquire a customer? It's being able to say with confidence, what are my customers worth at every single day of the journey for every product, funnel, traffic source, and affiliate, right? That's what visibility looks like. And when you have it, you can now look across that visibility and identify the constraint where, if addressed, would produce the most leverage for the business. And when you don't do this, you get stuck in these flailing cycles. Here's something that a lot of people need to hear and need to confront if they really want to be one of these top 1% ClickBank sellers. If you want that to be you, here's what you need to know. There's a lot of ego in this discussion. It's something that we have to address. It's easy for us to blame external factors. It's easy for us to blame the market, the news cycle, the ad platforms, the agency, the offer. It's easy to point fingers outward. And we often do that because we don't really know what's going on. What we really need to do is point the fingers at ourselves and say, why is this affecting us so much? Why are we so susceptible to a change in the algorithm? Why are we so susceptible to customer acquisition costs going up by $10? Why are we so susceptible to our affiliates demanding $10 higher commissions? Well, we lack the resilience. We don't have the resilience required to be able to withstand those things. Those are inevitabilities. So you can point your fingers at Meta or Google or the agencies all you want, but no matter what, those things aren't going to go away. CAC is going to continue to rise year over year, just like it has. That's not going to stop either. Even with these things going on, the solution is always inward. The solution is, how do we build a business resilient to these things? Because Meta is going to be Meta. The agency isn't going to be perfect. The top 1% ClickBank sellers, they can weather those storms. They can actually thrive while everyone else is suffering because they can withstand a $10, $20 rise in customer acquisition costs. So what you have to confront here is that there are things inside of your business that you are not addressing. There are constraints that you're not addressing. But you're honestly not addressing them simply because you can't see them. So this brings us all the way back around to visibility. Get the visibility required. Use that visibility to identify the constraint. And now, instead of flailing, you can maximally allocate your team's resources at attacking the constraint. And you can prevent yourself from falling into this trap of scaling your problems. Because when you point fingers externally, you're not addressing the broken foundation that exists inside the system of your business, inside your offer. It's like having a house with a cracked foundation and deciding that you're going to build a second, a third, and a fourth house with that same blueprint. This is what it looks like when your ship is sinking and all you're doing is shoveling water out of the boat because you don't actually realize that there's all these leaks below the surface. The effort is being put in one way or another. You can either spend it doing maintenance on the houses, shoveling the water out of the boat, or you can spend it fixing the root causes so that you don't have to shovel water out anymore at all because water's not coming in. This is the difference. But if you're going to adopt this approach, you have to stop pointing the finger externally. Those things come with the territory. You have to confront the fact that you have an unoptimized system. You have to confront the fact that a lack of visibility is preventing you from making good decisions. You have to confront the fact that your team is going to go through the week one way or another, and it's up to you as the leader to decide what they're going to focus on. And if you don't have the visibility, you can't identify the constraint, you can't make good decisions about allocating your resources to move the business forward. So ultimately, it does fall back on visibility. It does fall back on you, because the decisions we make are only going to be as good as the visibility that we have. And if we get ourselves the visibility, we can now inform ourselves enough to start making good decisions, to stop being lucky, to stop guessing, to stop having the majority of our decisions lead us down just to yet another problem, to more busyness, to more maintenance work, to more shoveling water out of the boat. So at the end of the day, you need to take the future of your business into your own hands. These external factors come with the territory. And if we can point inward, solve the visibility problem, we can start making better decisions for our business. We can take control of our business's future. We can build a more resilient business that can weather the volatility, that can weather the rising customer acquisition cost, and we could build something that can get through stormy weather and get through those tough times. So now let's talk about what winning actually looks like. So we've covered the 5 core problems that ClickBank sellers face. We've looked at the perceived pains, and we've looked at the root pains underneath the surface. We've also dove a little bit into the solutions, but now let's tie it all together into one system. And that is the leverage loops system. This is, at its core, how you resolve all of these pains. This is how you make effective decisions as a business. Now, the common theme across many of the pain points is 2 things. 1, a lack of visibility, and 2, a lack of CAC resilience. So the ability to weather the storm of a rising customer acquisition cost. So let's unpack the leverage loop system in order to see how it builds up this CAC resilience and allows us to make more effective decisions. So first, visibility. Visibility is first. We must have that to be able to see what's actually going on. Then we can leverage that visibility to identify the true constraint of the business. This is what prevents flailing. This is what allows us to see what's really going on and what will be the maximum leverage move to make based on the constraint of the business. So we leverage our visibility. We can now see this is the thing that we need to focus on. For example, it might be your refunds over the course of the first 90 days. Now that we've identified the constraint, we maximally allocate resources to solve that constraint. We use our visibility to identify the constraint, and then we attack it with everything that we've got. And this is far more effective than doing a lot of things to a very shallow depth, right? This is allocating resources maximally to attack the constraint because there's more opportunity there. There's more leverage there. There's a bigger win for us there if we solve that constraint as opposed to doing a lot of things at a mediocre level. So we attack the constraint, and then we lean back on our visibility to see if we've addressed it. Have we moved the metric close enough to benchmark or target? Have we realized the leverage that was available to us there using the visibility that we have? And if that constraint has been solved, then we use that visibility to find the next constraint. And if the constraint hasn't been solved, we keep attacking it. Then you repeat this process. And what's beautiful about the leverage loop system is that it is compounding. Every time you go through this loop, you're attacking the point of maximum leverage in the business. So the win that you get there is going to be the biggest win available to you. I'm a big believer in stacking incremental wins, but this is the system that tells you in what order to stack these incremental wins. And it massively increases the likelihood of success because you're actually allocating resources across the business to attack it maximally. And that's a really key point. It's not flailing. It's the opposite. It's focus. You attack that constraint with everything that you've got. That will move the business forward. You do this over and over again, those wins compound. And that is the leverage loop system. If you've made it all the way through this masterclass, congratulations. You now have everything you need to break through your scale ceiling as a ClickBank seller. In this video, we've walked through the most common pain points that ClickBank sellers experience, how those pain points are really shadows of the real constraints, and the exact system to follow to identify and attack those constraints to produce maximum leverage and break through your scale ceiling. And if you want to join the 1% of ClickBank sellers, click the link below to book a scale session with your team, and we'll walk you through exactly how to leverage the $1.7 billion in data that we've analyzed to install this system into your business. If you like this video, hit that like button and please subscribe to my channel. It will really help me reach more sellers just like you. I'm investing a tremendous amount of time and energy into producing content just like this. I would really appreciate it if you could help me get that message out there.